there are also people who do have like a slightly condescending but well-meaning attitude of like, well, people are young and like, how do we, you know, it is a huge decision. I'd love to hear from all of you about like why we can trust kids to like tell us who they are.
Joining me now, Mary Harrington. She's an author of Feminism Against Progress. Mary, why can't we just let kids tell us who they are?
Well, because they don't know. I mean, but my daughter, if my daughter says she's a cat, I'm going to be like, you're 6. You know, sure, you can play at being a cat, but you're not a cat. I'm not going to go and get her an operation to have a tail and some ears grafted onto her. That's just not happening.
Mary, what's wild is what you just said is the most normal, common sense thing. And really, for all of human history, everyone would have heard you speak those words and say, well, yeah, obviously, that's obvious. Everyone knows that. Yet today, that's controversial and thought of as hateful. How did we change so much in like the last 15 minutes?
Well, here's the thing. I don't actually think it was the last 15 minutes. I think it's taken a whole lot longer than that. It's just been radically accelerated in recent years by the arrival of the internet. But actually, the origin point, in my view, of where we've got to on all of this was the arrival of the birth control pill. Because that was the first transhuman technology, which said to women, okay, you can be free and you can be people to the extent that you're willing to use this technology to make you interchangeable from men. And that was that was our entry point into a completely different understanding of what medicine is, and a completely different understanding of what freedom is, and a completely different understanding of what feminism is, and or at least it travels under the banner of feminism. But I think it's something more like a libertarianism of the body, which says we can change our bodies to be whatever it is that we want them to be, and we have a right to do that. And if you try and stop me or tell me that there are any limits on what I can do with my body, you're infringing my civil rights. And really, that's what Daniel Radcliffe is saying there. He's expressing that libertarianism of the body, and he's saying that actually all we are is this sort of nameless internal essence, and we have a right to do whatever it is that we want with our bodies to make it fit our inner essence. But the problem is, I mean, this is clearly not somebody who's spent very much time around children, because this is just not true. You know, if anybody who's met children or anybody who has children knows that they're incredibly suggestible. They don't know who they are. It's our job as adults to set boundaries with children, and it's our duty, frankly, as adults, to set boundaries with children. But we've been living for 50 years now under an order which says it's a fundamental precondition for women's freedom that they should be able to fiddle with their endocrine systems in order to make us interchangeable from men. And from that perspective, it's hard to see why we shouldn't extend that to people who want to fiddle with their endocrine systems so they can resemble women in order to gratify a sexual fetish, for example, or fiddle with their endocrine systems because they think they might be molested less at school if they look like a boy rather than a girl. Why should we be able to take fake hormones to do one thing and not the other? So you draw a straight line from the sexual revolution to the arrival of the transgender movement. And really the main thing which has accelerated it in recent years and which has made it seem so much more extreme and so much more in demand, particularly among the young, is the fact that most kids now grow up socializing in Minecraft or Instagram or whatever, and so they're just used to interacting in a way which is separate from their bodies. So they genuinely believe that who they are has nothing to do with what their body is like, and they should be able to fiddle with their bodies as they see fit. So those are really the two factors. 50 years of the pill, accelerated by the arrival of the internet age, and this belief that who we are is nothing to do with what shape our bodies are. And all of a sudden, it's like a perfect storm that's come together and has given us what looks like a civil rights movement, but is something altogether creepier than that.
Man, that is. Was your name used to be Sebastian? What's the story there?
I guess I was an earlier experimenter in all of these areas. You know, I fell in love with the internet the moment I first came across it. But of course, I was about 18 when we first got dial-up. I don't know if you remember the dial-up noise. This is something which ages people.
Oh,
you know what? If you know the noise, you're of a certain age. Yeah, I can remember getting dial-up in my late teens and falling and just realizing what it was for. and that actually it wasn't just for looking things up the way the boomers imagine, like it's a big library. It's not for that. It's for socializing in. It's for being. It's for finding your people in a way which has nothing to do with where you are or what you look like or who you are really. And I've loved the internet ever since I first came across it. So I have a lot of sympathy with the people who now imagine that they can just reskin their meat avatar anytime they want to, because they've grown up being able to do that with their digital avatars. And I guess I changed my name to Sebastian for a bit. It was kind of an experiment. I mean, I was never, fiddling around with your name and being genderqueer wasn't something that the normie world took particularly seriously in the mid noughties. It was very much a kind of fringe subculture at that point. And so it wasn't really something that I expected anybody to be fired from work for not respecting the way it seems to be the case, at least in some workplaces now. But it was more of a thought experiment. If I changed my name to Sebastian, what would it feel like? Would I expect people to go along with that? Some of them did, some of them didn't. My family never went along with it. I didn't feel particularly bothered about that because it seemed kind of fair enough. They'd known me for a long time. But it was a thought experiment, and I wanted to see how it would feel. As it turned out, I wasn't massively comfortable with being Sebastian, so I went by Sebastian Mary for a bit, and then I just went back to being Mary. It was just easier.
I'm glad you're back to being Mary. We prefer you as Mary. Mary, come back soon. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.